Welcome to another episode of Todoist Productivity Tips. My name is Jerry Colbert, and in this week's episode, we're going to be learning all about how I use Todoist. Coming up next. So here we are within Todoist for Mac. And in this week's episode, it's going to be kind of a long one, and I will more than likely break it up into two parts. This will be part one, and then later on I'll do a part two episode showing you how I use Todoist in an everyday basis. Okay. Now, as you see, I have Todoist open up, and whenever I open up Todoist in the morning, typically it opens up with my inbox right up here at the top of all of my today items that I gotta do. Now, of course, you're probably wondering how I have so many tasks. Well, I typically like to utilize Todoist for developing habits and keeping myself on track with those habits. I tend to be a little bit more forgetful nowadays. So I put pretty much every single thing that I do during a day inside of Todoist. And so I have a lot of repeatable tasks in here that are daily tasks or weekly tasks, and they're just routines. And I have a lot of those in here. And then I also have things that I want to put in here that's going to move my life forward. Now, with that being said, if you wind up putting pretty much everything in there, even your habit building tasks, and you put all your weekly routines and daily routines in there, like, taking the trash out, doing the dishes, and all this stuff like that. If you wind up putting all of that in there, you're going to develop a sense of overwhelm, because you're going to wake up in the morning, like this morning I woke up and I had, about 70 tasks, and that's on a good day. Some days I have 100 tasks, and you're like, well, wow, how do you get through all those tasks? And isn't that a little bit of overwhelm? Well, if I was just to pay attention to my today view and see that I had 70 tasks or 100 tasks, like right now I got 54 tasks because I've completed some of my morning ritual already. So some of those tasks have gone down, but for the most part, what I tend to do is I utilize filters a lot. And what filters allow me to do is, if you watched any of my other episodes, is it allows me to chunk my tasks in certain areas so it's not so overwhelming. So what I've done is I have trained myself to not really care about what I see as a number, as how many tasks I have. But what I have trained myself to do is focus on only the tasks that are underneath these filters. Now, as you see here, I have tons and tons of filters. But to be honest with you, some of those filters I don't use anymore, and I'll probably get rid of once I decide to do that. But for the most part, I utilize a majority of these filters in my daily tasks. Now, if you watch some of my other videos, you'll know what filters are. Filters are in the premium version of Todoist. So if you do not have the premium version of Todoist, this is the cool stuff you can do with it. So you might want to consider knuckling down and getting the premium version. It doesn't cost that much, and it's far worth it. But with filters are an excellent way of narrowing down your tasks within a day. So it basically works on the simple basis of you're given it a set of instructions of what you want it to do, and it's it'll take those set of instructions and give you that query here in your display. So, for instance, you can do a filter for a label. You can do a filter for a project. Maybe you only want to see a certain amount of projects, or maybe you only want to see a certain type of label. I typically use filters for basically filtering out my labels. So I've created a label system, and if you go here to my labels tab, you'll see I have a whole slew of labels here. Probably more than I need. But in any case, some of these are contextual labels, and some are labels that I've created so I can utilize filters to the utmost ability that filters can do. So some of these are not technically contextual filters, and it might go away from the GTD system a little bit, but for the most part, I do use contextual labels, and then mixed with some labels that help me filter a little bit better with the filters. Now, if you go over here to projects, you see I have quite a slew of projects here that I do. And what I typically like to do is I go ahead and break out these projects into certain segments. For instance, I have home projects here, and you see these are the home projects that I'm currently working on. I have my routines all under here, and I've even kind of broke it down even a little bit more than probably most people do with their routines. So as you see, I have a daily routine here, and under daily routines, I've got morning routine, evening routine, and winding down routine. This helps me develop habits to control procrastination, and helps me keep my day on track. So I don't just have daily routines, I've kind of broken them down. And the cool thing about breaking them down like this, now, of course, I could have put them all under daily routines, and there's nothing that says that you can't do that. And I could have put them all under daily routines here. But I found it a little bit better to break them down here, because therefore I can see in a visual representation when I click on, let's say for instance, I click on evening routines, I've made my list here top to bottom of what I want to accomplish during that time in order. And the cool thing about putting it in order here in your projects of top down here is that when you go over to filters and you click on that filter for evening routines, it has everything in order for you so you can complete your tasks. Now, if I was to do it in the today view here, my task would be all over the map, would be all over the place. I'd have verified batteries at the top of the list. I'd have, charge my keyboard at the bottom list. And maybe some of those don't really matter on which order they come into, but some of them are specific to how I want to run my evening routine that I found to be the most efficient. Also, by doing this, creating these projects like this with your daily routines, this helps you add to it. If you say, hey, you know what, I forgot something, I need to add something to it, so you go ahead and go in there and add it to it. And some of these routines might be duplicates of other routines in the morning routine, evening routine, and winding down routine. But that's basically what I've done with my routines. I've also broken down a weekly routine. I've got a bi-weekly routine. I have monthly routines and quarterly routines and yearly routines. Also, under the home thing here, I have single actions, or anything that are not going to be routines. They're not repeatable, or they could be repeatable, but maybe I'm only doing it once in a blue moon, once every 3 weeks, once every 2 weeks, and there's no set time that I'm doing it. And maybe it's just some things that I have just thought of that I need to accomplish in the day. Those go in this project. So, with that being said, remember, if you've watched any of my other episodes, everything I do whenever I'm creating tasks go into the inbox, and then I sparse it out from the inbox into all of my projects wherever they belong. So if I was to create a project now for, let's say, something to do at home, maybe I'm going to straighten up my desk. Okay. Well, what I'll do here is I'll go ahead and click on the add task here, and I will go ahead and type in what I'm going to do. Now, I want to clean off my desk, so that the verb here would be clean. Okay. And it's going to be my home desk. So what I'm going to do here is I typically, and you know, this also, you have to develop a habit at this. Okay. So what I do is I typically put the verb in all caps, and I also bold it as well. So what I mean by that is I'll go ahead and put the little exclamation points, and I'll write clean and close it off with the other exclamation points. And then I will type out what I want to do. Now you could write it like that, or you could just say clean my desk and then put a tag on there that signifies what you want to do. And then of course I'll put today, and then I'll also put that in my home folder like that. So this might be something that I do. So I'll go ahead and put this in there. So now as you see here, there's nothing in my inbox, right? Because I automatically, because I've developed a habit of where I want to go with it, and I already know that it's going to go down here in my single actions. Now, there are some times that I have no idea where I am going to put the project, and therefore I just go ahead and put it in my inbox, and I'll go ahead and figure that out at the end of the day if it isn't anything that is specific or time specific that I need to accomplish. Now here you see I have in my inbox, I have watch the all new Moleskin actions. Things 3 meets blah, 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 blah. Okay? You see I have this in here, and if I hover over it, I can click on it. Well, what this is something that I set up using the IFTTT method. And utilizing that, goes ahead, and whenever something on YouTube that I'm interested in, it'll forward this over into my inbox, and then I can sparse it out later to what I want to do with it. So what I do, I go ahead and say, hey, I need to move that to my single actions home. I'll probably watch that on my iMac, and I'll probably do that at home, but also I could do it anywhere. And voila, and I will do that. Yeah, I'll do that today, even though it's already set for today. And now it's gone, and it's in its proper space, and it will show up in my today view when I get to that task later on. So these are some of the things that I do with my projects. Now, with that being said, in the morning time when I wake up, I always go over here, and I don't pay attention to this, and I don't really pay attention to my inbox, but I'll go over here to filters, and I'll start from the top down. So I'll usually go to today's focus, and then bills due. Then I'll go to random tasks, chores for the day, errands for the day, and then all of my other tasks. And I usually end right down here to winding down routines. So this is what I wanted to show you in this episode of Todoist. Now, like I say, might be a little bit of a long one. Next week, I will go over part 2 of how I go through these and how I have those set up and why it chunks everything down into manageable tasks that I can accomplish. So stay tuned for next week's episode on Todoist. And so with that being said, please click on that like button right down below, or is it over here? Well, it's down there somewhere. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please click on the subscribe button as well. And don't forget to click on that notification bell if you are looking for notifications on any upcoming episodes of mine. And without further ado, I want to wish you all an awesome day, and let's become more productive. Thank you.